Hi, I'm Justine. Now, let's get the stuff that can be off putting to some people out of the way. Yes, I'm a counselor, but I'm not your typical one. And I don't do traditional therapy, and I don't typically work with people who need that sort of support. And I certainly don't sit in an office all day dishing out advice. I prefer to call myself a coach or an identity architect. What's most important is what it is that I do and who it is that I do it with. I work mostly with high achievers and people who want to create lives that genuinely feel good, not just look good. I've worked with royalty, rock stars, influencers, CEOs, founders, lawyers, doctors, teachers, and young people just like you who are just starting out on their journeys. If you're here and you're listening to this, it's probably because somebody told you about this new program I'm going to be delivering in Hong Kong starting in August this year. Maybe it was a parent, a friend, a teacher, or perhaps you just heard about it on the grapevine. However you came to be here, I'm glad you are because I want to tell you about it. Before I tell you what it is, I want to say something that I think is actually true about where you are right now in your life. Because I've been working with young people for over 2 decades now, and I want to start with something real rather than something that sounds like a program description. Now, whether you're going into years 7, 8, 9, or 10, something is shifting. You probably already know that, even if you don't have the words for it yet. You want more say in your own life. You want people to stop treating you like a child because you're not really anymore. And at the same time, the world keeps handing you decisions and pressures and expectations that feel much bigger than they used to. The friendships are more complicated. The stakes feel higher. And the version of yourself you're trying to figure out keeps moving. It's this strange in-between place where you're too old for some things and too young for others. And everyone around you seems to be navigating it differently, which doesn't help. That space right there is where this program I call Blueprint lives. Not because something is wrong with you, because nothing is wrong with you, but because this is one of the most important periods of your life for building something that most people never build with intention. And that is a real honest relationship with yourself. So why does that matter? In really practical terms, right now and for what's coming. So let me ask you something. Have you ever done something, said something, made a choice, and then afterwards had this feeling of, that wasn't quite me. That didn't feel quite right. Or have you been in a situation where you knew what it is that you wanted to say, what you actually thought, and something stopped you from actually doing that? Maybe it was the room you were in. Maybe it was who was watching you. Maybe you just weren't sure your version of things was worth saying out loud. Maybe it was just too uncomfortable to speak your truth. Or the other version, you've been going along with something, say a friendship or a direction. Perhaps it's subjects you've chosen or a way of presenting yourself. And somewhere underneath it, there's a small voice going, is this actually me? Is this really me? Is this what I actually want? Or is this just what I've learned to be? Most people have that experience. Most people ignore it. They get busy, they move on, they perform the version of themselves that seems to be working. And they don't look too closely at the gap between that performance and what's actually going on inside of them. Blueprint is about closing that gap, not dramatically, not by blowing anything up, but by building gradually and deliberately a much clearer and more honest understanding of who you actually are, what you actually think, what you actually value, what you want your life to look like. built by you from the inside. And that's relevant whether you're 12, 13, 14, 15, or 16. The questions are the same. What changes is what's immediately at stake. And I want to speak to both because they're genuinely different. So if you're going into years 7 or 8, let me talk to you specifically for a moment, because I know that some of you have said to me that you've questioned whether you're even old enough for this program. And here's my honest answer about that. It depends on you. It's not about your age, it's about you. I've worked with 12-year-olds who are so curious about themselves and so ready for this kind of conversation, this kind of work, that blueprint is exactly right for them. And I've worked with older teenagers who aren't quite ready yet at 15. Not because anything was wrong with them, but because the questions haven't become urgent enough yet for them to dig in. So what I will say though about being 12, 13, or 14 even is this. It's one of the most interesting and genuinely difficult ages to be, because so much is changing so fast. Your body, your friendships, your relationships, the way you relate to your parents, which is shifting whether you've named it or not. The version of yourself that you were at 10 doesn't quite fit anymore. And the version you're becoming isn't fully formed yet. You're at this in-between stage. And in-between can be uncomfortable because it can bring up all sorts of questions. That discomfort is not a problem. It's actually the signal that you're exactly in the right place for this kind of work. Because Blueprint doesn't require you to have yourself figured out. It requires you simply to be willing to look honestly at what's actually there. And that willingness, that curiosity about yourself, that's the only qualification you need. The younger you are when you start building a real relationship, with yourself, the more of your life you get to live from that foundation. The longer you wait, the longer the autopilot runs. Now, if you're going into years 9 or 10, the stakes are becoming very visible very quickly, and you know that. The subject choices, the academic pressure, the shadow of college applications, even if they're still a year or two away. The sense that the path is starting to narrow and the decisions you make now are going to matter. And here's what I want to say to you specifically. The students who stand out in competitive college applications, and I mean genuinely stand out, not in a try-hard way, but in a this is a real person way. They're not the ones with the most impressive list of achievements. Sure, that helps, but they're not the ones that stand out. The ones that stand out in a good way are the ones who know themselves well enough to write from the inside out. Admissions officers read thousands and thousands of personal statements. They can spot a performance from the first paragraph. That polished, impressive sounding, hitting all the right notes application that was written by someone who literally sat down and thought, what do they want to hear? Rather than what's actually true about me. You know what that sounds like? It sounds like putting on someone else's clothes. Maybe those clothes look amazing on that person. Maybe they're objectively stylish. But on you, something's off. They don't fit. And you can't quite fix it by adjusting the collar. It's off because they're not you. They don't belong to you. The personal statement that is going to land, the one that makes an admissions officer stop and read it twice, sounds like a real person walked into the room. Because one did. Because the student who wrote it knew themselves well enough to say something specific and genuine rather than something that was generally impressive. That's a self-knowledge skill, not a writing skill, not something a tutor can give you. Something you build from the inside by doing exactly the kind of work that this program is designed for. By the time you finish this program, you will have a personal statement that is authentically yours. not a template, not something that sounds good on someone else, something that only you could write because it came from you, right? And me and my co-facilitator will actually help you pull that together. But let me step back from college for a moment because that's not the whole picture. And for the younger ones, it's not even the most immediate thing. It's not even on your radar at this time, nor should it be right now. Let me talk to you about something that's relevant to every single person, whether you're going into year 7, 8, 9, or 10, regardless of where you are academically or what you're thinking about for the future. And that is your relationships, the friendships that might be getting more complicated, the group dynamics that have shifted since primary school, the person you are in different groups, and whether those versions of yourself feel consistent or whether you're constantly adjusting and shape-shifting depending on the rooms that you're in. The conversations that are harder than they used to be. The ones where you're not sure what you think, or you know what you think, but you're not sure how you should say it or whether or not you should indeed say it. The relationships with your parents, which is changing whether you've talked about it or not. You want more autonomy. You want to be trusted to make your own decisions. And sometimes it feels like the adults around you are still treating you like the person you were 2 years ago, not the person you are today, and certainly not the person you're becoming. All of that is normal. All of it is a part of growing up. And all of it gets significantly easier when you have a clearer relationship with yourself. Because here's what I've observed after decades of working with people of all ages. The quality of every relationship you have with your friends, your family, and eventually your colleagues and your partners is directly shaped by the quality of the relationship you have with yourself. And the quality of your relationships determines how happy you are actually in life. And that's backed by so much research. Now, when you know what you actually think and feel, you can communicate it. When you know what you value, you can make decisions that actually make sense to you. When you understand your own patterns, you can see them clearly enough to change them if they're not serving you, if that's what you want to do. When you've examined what you actually believe rather than just what you've been told to believe, you can disagree with someone without it feeling like an attack. These aren't abstract skills. They're skills that will determine whether your friendships are genuinely sustaining or constantly exhausting you. Whether your relationship with your parents can shift and grow as you do. Whether the groups you're part of at school bring out the best in you or flatten you into something smaller. And we don't want that. Now, I want to talk about something that you already know is changing in the world you're growing up in, and that is AI. You're using it, your teachers know you are, your parents probably know you are, but that's not what I want to talk to you about. What I want to talk to you about here is a question that I think is one of the most important questions of your generation. And it's not, will AI take my job, right? I mean, the jobs that exist in the future don't exist now, right? That's a question for later. The question right now is, in a world where AI can produce technically perfect work in any format, in any language, on demand, what is specifically and irreplaceably yours? Think about that for a second. AI can write in English perfectly, in Mandarin perfectly. It can produce essays, creative work, analysis, arguments in both languages in seconds at a level that is so damn fast. So what is it that you have that AI doesn't? It's not your grades, it's not your output, it's not even your bilingual skills, because AI is multilingual in ways that none of us can match. What AI doesn't have is your biography, your stories, the specific way that your particular life, your family, the languages that you speak, your experience of growing up between two or more cultural worlds, your friendships, your struggles, your specific moments of figuring out something the hard way has shaped how you read a room, how you sense what's unsaid, how you understand from the inside what it costs to be in the spaces you're in. That can't be generated. It was lived. It's your life, right? But here's the thing. Most people never examine their biography. They just carry it. They operate on autopilot, running patterns that were set in motion before they had any conscious say, doing what they think they should do, being who they think they're supposed to be. And you see, when you carry something without examining it, you don't actually own it. It owns you. It is basically holding you. The young people who are going to stand out in the world being built right now are not the ones who can produce the most technically excellent output. AI is going to make that the minimum requirement, not the distinction. The ones who will stand out in a good way are the ones who know their biography, who have examined it honestly, who can bring a perspective that is genuinely specifically theirs. Blueprint is where you go to examine that biography before you've lived 30 years long and considerably more, it's considerably more complicated to untangle then. Now, let me talk about the actual skills you're going to build in the program, because I want you to really understand these. The first one is self-awareness. And I know that sounds obvious given what I've just explained, but genuine self-awareness, knowing what you actually feel, not what you're supposed to feel, knowing what you actually think, not just what came out of your mouth, knowing your own patterns well enough to choose whether to run from them or not. That's genuinely rare, and it's the foundation of everything else. The second one is communication. Real communication, not presenting, not performing, not saying the right thing. I mean, the ability to say what you actually think clearly in a way that another person can receive. The ability to be honest without being brutal, without being aggressive. The ability to say something difficult and have the relationship survive it. The ability to make someone feel genuinely heard, feel seen, even when you disagree with them. I work with adults, very successful adults, who are still learning this in their 40s. You have a chance to build it now. The third one is conflict. How to navigate it without destroying everything. And this is what I really want you to hear, because in my experience, it's the one that matters most in the years we're in right now. Most high-achieving young people are excellent at performing smoothly and terribly at disagreeing productively. I think it's why gaslighting was the word of the year a couple of years ago, because people just walk away rather than leaning into uncomfortable conversations. You see, in most high-achieving environments, conflict is treated as failure. The goal is harmony. Don't make it awkward. Don't be difficult. Don't stand out. Go along. Deliver well. Keep the peace. And then you find yourself in a situation that is really real and something that you actually care about is at stake. Or someone crosses a line, or a friendship gets complicated in a way that smooth performance can't fix. And you have no real tools for what to do next. The ability to disagree with someone, to say, I think that's wrong, or to hold a position when someone pushes back without it becoming an attack or without the relationship collapsing. That's one of the most valuable skills in any context. School now, college soon, work, friendships, family, every room you'll ever be in. And it's learnable. It's not a personality trait. And I want to teach it to you through practice in a real group with real conversations, real people. The fourth one is collaboration. Actually working with other people in a way that builds something rather than just dividing tasks and reassembling, which is a really common thing I see in high performers. They take on everything in a group because it's easier that way, safer that way. They get the results they want. I want you to understand what it is that you bring to the table. And I want you to understand what others bring to the table. And being able to hold space for someone else's strengths, even when they're different from yours. That's what every college, every workplace, every team, anywhere is looking for. And almost never finding, because it requires exactly the kind of self-knowledge we're going to build. Now, what does the program actually look like? What is it that you're actually signing up for? There's going to be one individual session with me at the beginning and another one at the end, just you and me. The one at the beginning will be about 45 minutes to an hour before the group starts. And this is where we map out your specific landscape, who you are right now, which parts of your life feels like you and which feel most like a performance, what you actually care about when you're being honest with yourself. There are no right or wrong answers in this session. It's really about me gaining clarity on where you're at and where you want to get to, right? It's just a genuine conversation, and it's where the work starts. There'll then be 10 group sessions, 90 minutes each. There'll be a maximum of 12 participants. There'll be 2 facilitators, myself and my colleague, Catherine Jung. That's it. The group will be small, so it's a 1-to-6 ratio. Everyone will be genuinely seen in the group. We will know each of you. The sessions are going to be a combination of online at the Grand Hyatt and at the Grand Hyatt One Chai, which is deliberately not a classroom. The environment matters because it's designed to feel different from school, because it needs to be. The sessions will move through 3 stages. The first, recognition. And that's where we look honestly at what's actually there. Not to judge it, but to see it. The versions of you that show up in different rooms. The things you do because you want to, and the things you do because you've learned they get approval. They keep you safe. The patterns you run without quite noticing. This stage is often surprising because most people have never been given the time, or taken the time, I should say, and space to look at themselves this directly. The second stage is reckoning. This is the middle stage and the most interesting one, I think. This is where we separate what's generally yours from what was handed to you. Your actual values, your actual perspective, the things you believe when you're not performing. And this is where we'll use the MBTI personality assessment, which I'll explain later. It's where the real personal statement starts to take shape for the older ones. And for the younger ones, this is where the most important questions about friendships, relationships, and who you want to be start to get real answers. The third stage is reconstruction. And this is where the program all comes together. The question there is, now that you're able to see clearly, what are you choosing? Who are you choosing to be? What fits and what doesn't? What do you want to take forward consciously by choice? And what do you want to put down? What do you want to embrace? What do you want to discard? And at the very end, there is a blueprint declaration, something you create yourself, a statement about who you are and who you are choosing to become. Now, a little bit about the MBTI. You may have heard of personality types, or perhaps you've done a free version of the MBTI or 16 personalities online. The MBTI is the most widely used personality framework in the world. And I don't use it as a label. It's not you're this type and that's just who you are. I use it as a diagnostic tool to find the places where your genuine preferences and your cultural adaptations have diverged, where the real you and the adapted you have parted company. Those are usually the most interesting places, and they feed directly into every other piece of work we do. You'll get to do this assessment, you'll get a 20-something page report, and then have a one-to-one debrief to understand the findings in details. We then use these findings to lean into real-life scenarios to apply the learnings. This is going to be a lot of fun. Now, parents and some of you all have sent me through some questions that I want to address. The first one is, will parents be in the sessions? Absolutely not. No, this is your space completely. Your parents will not be in the sessions, and they won't have access to what you share or what comes up for you personally. Okay? What I will do though is after each session, I will send them a brief email. Every parent will get the same email. Not a report, but a window into the room, an overview of the theme that we explored, and I will give them some ideas for opening a conversation home about it if they want to. They will get enough context that they can meet you where you are, but not enough to know anything that's yours to keep private. That's really important. This is your space fully. Now, who else will be in the group? There will be other people from your school community, particularly ISF and CIS, which means there is a real chance that you'll know some of them. And that's not something I'm going to pretend away, nor am I concerned about it. I actually think it's a really good thing, because here's what I found. When the people in the room already share a world, which you will, something specific is possible. You don't have to explain the context. You don't have to translate the experience. The shared understanding produces a depth that a room of strangers simply can't reach. Saying this, before the program begins, every participant will sign a confidentiality agreement. This is signed, not just assumed that you'll do it. Nothing said in the room is repeated outside of it in any format, including group chats. What you share in the program stays in the program. You decide what you share. How many sessions will there be? How long and where? So, one individual session with me at the start, one at the end. You will have an MBTI debrief that is one-on-one with my co-facilitator, Catherine. There'll be 10 group sessions, 90 minutes each, every fortnight, approximately. We take breaks for school holidays, etc. And it will go across approximately 3 to 4 months. It'll be a combination of online and in person in Hong Kong. Now, what if I miss a session? I get it, right? You guys are busy. What I ask is that you let me know in advance, and we'll find a way to bring you back into the flow. But I need you to understand that this is not a series of standalone workshops every fortnight. Each session builds on the next. Occasional unavoidable absence is manageable. But if your schedule is genuinely uncertain, that's a conversation we should have before we start. Now, there will be options for which session you sign up for. We have options for Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, or Sunday afternoon. You can let me know your preference, or let your parents know and they'll let me know. The question about is 12 too young? I think I've answered that before. It really depends on the 12-year-old as to whether they're ready for this type of work. But as I said before, between the ages of 12 to 14 are some of the most genuinely important years for understanding yourself. Everything is shifting. The friendships, the family dynamics, the version of yourself you're trying to figure out. And that shifting, that in-between feeling is exactly the moment when having a real framework for self-understanding makes the most difference. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be curious enough to go there, to look. So here's what I want to leave you all with. You're at one of the most demanding academic schools in Hong Kong, be that ISF or CIS or SIS, all right? You're capable, you work hard, you deliver. I'm not here to tell you that any of that isn't enough. But here's something I've watched play out over and over again across decades of working with young people and the adults that they then become. The ones who build a real honest relationship with themselves early, who know what they think, know who they are, know why they think the way that they think, who can communicate themselves clearly, who can navigate the complicated stuff without losing themselves, those people don't just do well, they don't just excel, they do something better than well. They build lives that are actually theirs, not lives that look right from the outside, not lives that tick all the boxes according to what society tells you, is the definition of success, but lives that feel right from the inside. That's the work. And the earlier you start it, the more of your life you get to live from that foundation. You don't have to have it all, you don't have to have yourself all figured out to do this. You just need to be willing to look. So talk to your parents about it. Tell them if you're interested, and we can go from there. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me directly. Send me an email or send me a direct message, okay? And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I really hope to see you in the room. Bye for now.